Welcome to the Elusive Truth with Rich and Larry. Larry was going to be with us today. He's celebrating his anniversary, so he's got one more pass. He will be back on. He's got more crazy stuff to say. That's Larry for you. Anyway, thanks for listening. It's hard to keep up with everything going on. It's going 100 miles an hour in every direction. Today, Epstein files came out, at least some of them, and a lot more information is promised to be released. I don't know. And I haven't even checked to see what's actually going on with Epstein, but you know it's not going to be good. It's terrible any way that you look at it. But at least we'll have some idea of what's going on, hopefully. Thank goodness for the new administration, because we definitely know that the old administration, there's no way that this would have ever came out. We're going to start off with Pete Hegseth. Now, this is amazing to me. He's Secretary of Defense, but I can't recall a time when Secretary of Defense would come out and give a little presentation on what he is doing, or at least letting the public know what his intentions are. The military is usually pretty quiet and secretive. Again, this is a new world we live in right now, and I definitely appreciate it. It's amazing. So here is Pete Hegseth, and he's going to let us know what he's up to. Very interesting. Have a listen.
Greetings once again from the Defense Department. You, the American people, work really hard to support the men and women in uniform who keep our country safe. We, in turn, owe you transparency on what we're doing to accomplish our core mission, which is securing the nation and spending your taxpayer dollars, ours, wisely. We're going to shoot straight with you. We want you, the American people, the taxpayers, to understand why we're making the decisions that we're making here. First and foremost, as we're executing as quickly as possible the priorities of President Donald Trump, achieving peace through strength, restoring the warrior ethos, rebuilding our military, and reestablishing deterrence. Those are no-brainers, and the American people gave a mandate to President Trump, and through him to us, to double down on those priorities, and that's exactly what we're doing. Now, the legacy media has, of course, a different agenda. You see the same clickbait headlines that I do. Time after time, the media distorts good news stories or often just gets them flat wrong. In most cases, they have an agenda. Other times, they are just lazy, as they often are, and they don't take time to actually understand the facts. I encourage you to take that media, those negative reports about important decisions that we're making at the department, with a gigantic grain of salt, please. Ever since I've taken this position, the only thing I care about is doing right by the warfighters, by the troops. In short, we want the biggest, most badass military on the planet, on God's green earth. I'm in this room right now, but I'm not alone. Behind the camera are lots of vets and military family members, along with other people who, like you, are invested in exactly what that core mission is. So when we make decisions that are misreported in the media, we're going to try to get to you as quickly as possible. And not just me, it'll be other people as well. So you understand the real thought process behind them, and then how they relate to our core mission of fighting and winning war, hopefully deterring them, but fighting and winning wars, and then how we spend your taxpayer dollars wisely to accomplish that mission. So to that end, we have 3 stories that have come out, stay with me, 3 stories over the past couple of days that I want to update you on. The first is Doge. They're here and we're welcoming them. In fact, right over there, about 20 minutes ago, I just met with them. And we're going to be incorporating into what we're doing at DOD, everything they're doing to find fraud, waste, and abuse in the largest discretionary budget in the federal government. They're going to have broad access. Obviously, with all the safeguards on classification, they know that. Many of them are vets. They care just like we do. To find the redundancies and identify the last vestiges of Biden priorities, the DEI, the woke, the climate change BS, that's not core to our mission, and we're going to get rid of it all. With Doge, we're focusing as much as we can on headquarters and fat and redundancies and top-line stuff that allows us to reinvest elsewhere. We welcome Doge, and finding those efficiencies is how we save taxpayer dollars. That is a good thing that, of course, is being distorted through the media, their hyperventilation, and it just goes entirely unreported for the most part. Now, the second story in the news is our work reorienting the budget that we inherited. We inherited that budget 1 month ago from the Biden administration. We are refocusing, that's a key word, our existing budget away from the Biden priorities that, frankly, were all over the map to President Trump's priorities of building a lethal fighting force. The media wants to call these exclusively cuts, but it's the opposite, of course, as always is the case. I've got the memo right here. It's clear as a bell. Now, beginning right away, we are pulling around 8% or $50 billion from the Biden budget. We're planning, this is planning for this year, that we will move away from woke Biden-era non-lethal programs and instead spend that money on President Trump's America First, peace through strength priorities for our national budget. First of all, remember, this is all planning. We're asking the services to plan. So it's not a cut. It's refocusing and reinvesting existing funds into building a force that protects you, the American people. We also list on page 2, which I've marked up here in our memo, what is not part of the 8% refocusing of funds. It's stated very clearly here. Southwest border activities, combating transnational criminal organizations, an audit, nuclear modernization, Virginia-class submarines, the Golden Dome or Iron Dome, one-way attack drones, UAVs, cybersecurity, core readiness, training, the defense industrial base, and it goes on. They and other key programs are off the table under this program. They're too important, as are many other things. So this is great news for taxpayers and for our national security. That's a full stop. We'll just put a period on that one. And the third and final bogus story that is out there is around our reevaluation of our probationary workforce. Now, this is part of something that was mandated by an executive order from the president. Remember, President Trump was elected. He has the prerogative to advance executive orders. Our job is to follow them, and we're doing that. This reevaluation of probationary employees is being done across government, not just at the Defense Department, but we believe in the goals of the program, and our leaders are carrying out that review carefully and swiftly. Now, bottom line, it is simply not in the public interest to retain individuals whose contributions are not mission critical and to restore accountability within the federal workforce. Taxpayers deserve to have us take a really thorough look at our workforce top to bottom, and it will be top to bottom, to see where we can find and eliminate redundancies. Now, common sense would tell us where we should start, right? We start with poor performers amongst our probationary employees because that is common sense and you want the best and brightest. So when you look at headcount, we're going to be thoughtful, but we're also going to be aggressive up and down the chain to find the places where we can ensure the best and brightest are promoted based on merit. And then we're going to go out, we're going to put out a hiring freeze and take more time to identify on a performance-based standard who we're going to hire and reward hard-working employees who are central to the core warfighting mission. So we're going to take a little bit more time, make sure top to bottom we're doing a review. Those who we need, who are the best and brightest, are going to stay. Those who are underperformers won't. We'll continue to shoot straight with you. We've got your back. We're motivated to rebuild the most capable military in the world. That's why I'm here. That's what the president has asked me to do. But doing so does require tough decisions, and we are prepared to make them. But in the process, we want to communicate with you directly rather than through the filter of media outlets. And it's not just going to be me. You're going to see Sean Parnell and Graham Allen and others here in the department aggressively ensuring you get the real info in real time, helping you understand what's really going on at the department. So our warfighters and taxpayers deserve, of course, no less than that. And we'll keep reporting back to you from time to time what we're seeing, and we appreciate your support. We're not going to get everything perfect, but we're going to do it earnestly. And we're going to do it on behalf of President Trump's leadership in making our military once again the most lethal, badass fighting force on the planet to keep our country safe. God bless you, and we're going to keep fighting.
I really do believe that I have never heard anything like that before in my lifetime, at least from the Secretary of Defense. It does show you how different this administration from the previous one. It's night and day, 180-degree flip. Pete Hegseth. Unbelievable. Well, continuing, this is from Fox News. Pete Hegseth on the Russian and Ukraine war. It's another thing that is being taken care of. Every day there's a different statement and a different story. So it's crazy. At least we're getting somewhere. So, Pete Hegseth on the Russian and Ukraine war. Fox Now. Have a listen.
Secretary Pete Hegseth, welcome to Fox News Sunday.
Shannon.
Okay, so let's start here. Tomorrow marks 3 years, an anniversary of the start of this war. Russia apparently is planning to declare victory tomorrow. There are propagandists who say they're going to share messages that the West essentially abandoned Ukraine. I mean, how does the U.S. and will it counter that messaging if that's a victory lap Russia tries to take?
Well, Vladimir Putin can attempt to take all the victory laps he wants. The reality is the president is focused on one thing and one thing only, and that's stopping the killing and the destruction across Ukraine and ensuring an enduring peace. So both sides are going to make a lot of claims, and the president has very directly engaged both sides in real time. There's bilateral negotiations with Russia, which, by the way, no one else has been able to do. Joe Biden was never able to bring Russia to the table for actual peace talks. Only Donald Trump. He's the only man in the world that would be able to do that. He's also engaging directly with Ukraine. There's going to be bumps in the road in these conversations when you're seeking a historic peace. And ultimately, our role is to do just that. And President Trump is doing that. So I don't need to get into the characterization of. We know who invaded who. We understand the stakes of this game. America, more than any other country in the world, has invested in helping Ukraine defend itself. Now it's time for peace, and that's what the president is dedicated to.
Why has it seemed that there is some reticence to say who invaded whom or who's responsible for this? You know, there are questions about reports that a G7 statement, the U.S. opposed calling Russia the aggressor in that statement. And also, there are these warring resolutions allegedly at the UN. The U.S. wanted to essentially water down what Ukraine is trying to offer. This is what the Wall Street Journal reports. The Ukrainian draft pins the war's cause on Russia and calls for a peaceful solution this year built around a Russian withdrawal from Ukrainian territory. The U.S. resolution makes no reference to who started the war and makes no specific demands of the Kremlin. You know, your former colleague, my current colleague, Brian Kilmeade, pressed the president numerous times on this on Friday, and he finally did say, okay, Russia attacked. But why does it seem there's some hesitance to say that?
My question is, does all the finger pointing and pearl clutching make peace more likely? That's the enduring question the president is asking. He wants peace. And if that's the case, you've got to stare down the Russians and Vladimir Putin and who they've chosen to negotiate and have earnest conversations about difficult things, about security guarantees, about 2014 borders, what those will look like, about NATO members. Same thing with Ukraine, constructively and productively. So standing here and saying, you're good, you're bad, you're a dictator, you're not a dictator, you invaded, you didn't, it's not useful. It's not productive. And so President Trump isn't getting drawn into that in unnecessary ways. And as a result, we're closer to peace today than ever before. And I've been privy to these conversations. Great progress is being made. Zelensky should come to the table because this economic partnership is an important thing for the future of his country. And we hope that he will very soon.
But fair to say, Russia attacked unprovoked into Ukraine 3 years ago tomorrow.
Fair to say it's a very complicated situation.
Okay, we'll leave it there. You have said previously that Putin is a maniac. You've called him a war criminal. How would you describe him today?
He's someone we're negotiating with to end a conflict. What I said as a private citizen has no bearing on what, as Secretary of Defense, my job is as far as the characterization of a regime. I need to make sure our troops are ready. I need to be able to give advice to the president vis-a-vis future military aid, the posture in Europe. But I'm not driving these negotiations. I mean, Mike Walls and the Secretary of State and the Vice President and others are directly involved in these discussions. We're going to get to peace. But what the Defense Secretary thinks about Vladimir Putin is more or less irrelevant in this. I want peace. I want the killing to stop. I'm going to play my role. And Donald Trump is leading it. And we're closer today than ever before.
Does the U.S. have a role, though, on the world stage to say, this is a bad person, this is a dictator, this is an aggressor? Do we have a responsibility to say that?
No, we have done that plenty of times. And it's not a crazy statement to say there was an incursion into Ukraine. There was an invasion into Ukraine. Everybody, I mean, it was previous administrations who said a minor incursion and then welcomed Vladimir Putin, took that as a signal of weakness and entered. The other thing to step back on Ukraine here, Shannon, that's really important. Every part of this discussion for President Trump is from a position of strength. The perception from Vladimir Putin that Donald Trump is strong and means what he says has driven them and the Ukrainians to the table with an opportunity for peace. There's nothing weak about this. It was Obama and Biden that allowed the Russians to take land, take territory, and be aggressors. Donald Trump never has. He's going to bring peace that nobody else would be able to do.
Okay, so a couple of deals trying to come together here. One that would end the conflict, but a separate one with the U.S. and Ukraine potentially about rare earth minerals, security guarantees that we may provide them in that scenario. So there's that. There are also these foreign leaders from France and the U.K. coming this week to the White House. Alex talked about them potentially putting together a 30,000 strong force of peacekeepers. Is there any scenario, whether it's the rare earth minerals agreement, whether it's this, force that the Europeans want to stand up, any scenario in which U.S. troops are on the ground in Ukraine?
No. We've been very clear about that. U.S. troops will not be on the ground in Ukraine. But an economic partnership is important and an important commitment to Ukraine. My message in Brussels, which ruffled some feathers, and that's okay. That my point there was to inject realism into the conversation, was, hey, on the continent, Europe should lead. So it's very encouraging to see European leaders saying we're prepared to step in Ukraine and help provide security guarantees. We welcome that, and we hope they step up and do it.
Okay, starting Friday night, some big changes at the Pentagon in personnel and leadership and assignments. Senator Reid, who is, as you know, a veteran, he is the ranking member on Senate Armed Services Committee, wrote this. He says, a clear message is being sent to military leaders. Failure to demonstrate personal and political loyalty to Trump could result in retribution even after decades of honorable service. Goes on to say his military officers must remain free to give their best military advice without fear of reprisal. Is there room in military leadership for those who have loyalty to President Trump, but to those who may feel like that could be in conflict at some point to the Constitution?
That's a total mischaracterization from Senator Reid, as has been most of the hyperbole in the press around this. There is civilian control of the military. Nothing about this is unprecedented. The president deserves to pick his key national security and military advisory team. There are lots of presidents who've made changes, from FDR to Eisenhower to H.W. Bush to Barack Obama, who fired or dismissed hundreds of militaries during his term. There were 6 3- and 4-star generals that were moved into different positions or retired on Friday night. Of 160 3- and 4-star generals, this is a reflection of the president wanting the right people around him to execute the national security approach we want to take. And I have a lot of respect for C.Q. Brown. I got to know him over the course of a month. He's an honorable man, not the right man for the moment. And ultimately, the president made that call. And Dan Raising-Kane is going to be a fantastic chairman. I look forward to working with him. And he will give straightforward advice, as he did to President Trump on the defeat of ISIS. No one else said it could be done in a matter of weeks. Raising-Kane said it could. And guess what? It happened. And the president respects leaders who untie the hands of warfighters in a very dangerous world. I think Dan Kane's the man to meet the moment.
Okay, I got to ask you about this rumored list of people that you allegedly put together that were all going to be cleaned out. Is there a list? Is there anybody left on the list, if it exists?
There's no list, Shannon. I've heard that. I've seen that very rumor, although we have a very keen eye toward military leadership and their willingness to follow lawful orders. This is all about defending the Constitution. Joe Biden gave lawful orders. A lot of them are really bad. Okay, and it's unfortunate how they eroded our military. Ideological, COVID mandates. President Trump has given another set of lawful orders, and they will be followed. If they're not followed, and all these orders are in keeping with the Constitution and norms inside the military, if they're not followed, then those officers will find the door. And that's not a tough calculation. We feel really good about the direction the Pentagon is headed under President Trump. We're going to focus on warfighting and lethality and accountability and be the most transparent Pentagon that folks have seen in a long time, which is why I explain these things on a regular basis.
Well, and part of what you said on Friday night is that you were going to be looking for replacements, essentially, for judge advocates general for several of the branches. For people who may not know, I mean, they give advice to the military about what is lawful and what isn't. Not surprisingly, there's been some backlash to those who are worried about their removal. One Georgetown law professor says this: Trump also firing the Army, Navy, and Air Force JAGs. In some ways, that's even more chilling than firing the 4-stars. It's what you do when you're planning to break the law. You get rid of any lawyers who might try to slow you down. Your response to her?
I don't know who Rosa is and what her hyperbole is all about. Ultimately, we want lawyers who give sound constitutional advice and don't exist to attempt to be roadblocks to anything that happens in their spots. What we know about these TJAGs, they're called TJAGs inside the military. Traditionally, they've been elected by each other or chosen by each other, which is exactly how it works often with the chairman as well. Small group of insulated officers who perpetuate the status quo. Well, guess what? Status quo hasn't worked very well at the Pentagon. It's time for fresh blood. So we're going to open up those positions to a broader set and a merit-based process to find the best lawyers possible to lead the Army, the Air Force, and the Navy. There's nothing about purging. There's nothing about illegal. We've made clear from the beginning, Shannon, the military will be apolitical with a fidelity to the Constitution, prepared to close with and destroy our enemies. One thing people haven't noted yet, which I'll share, is we're going to take, those are 3-star billets, but traditionally they've been 2-star billets over time. There's been lots of inflation in the ranks over time. We're going to return those billets to 2-star billets. We're going to shrink the size of our headquarters units, the inflation of military generals. We won World War II with 7 4-star generals, Shannon. We have 44 today. We have 163 and 4-star generals. And has it created better outcomes or not? We're challenging a lot of assumptions at the Pentagon to streamline what we do so that we get as many resources as possible to the warfighter.
Well, and we know the Pentagon has not ever passed one of its audits, and that's next on your list. We know you're asking for cuts. I could talk the whole hour with you. I want to get to Iran, Israel, China, all of that. So please come back. We would love to see you again soon.
I just can't shake the feeling that the media really doesn't like Russia or Putin. I mean, they're trying to negotiate and stop a war, and the last thing you do is keep poking the bear. You're trying to resolve a conflict, paving the way for peace. Oh no, he's still bad and he did the conflict. I mean, people, stop. They want war. The industrial military complex has got a lot of power still, and they're fighting tooth and nail to keep this thing going. That reminds me. So the White House the other day, Carolyn Leavitt talked about how they're restructuring who gets White House press passes. And all of a sudden, the Democrats again are claiming the First Amendment's being taken away, that they're silencing the media and not being transparent with the people. I read an article where President Biden took away 440 press passes away and put his own spin and people into the press corps of the White House. But nothing. That's totally fine. But when the Trump administration does it, all crazy hell breaks loose. Hitler, the American democracy is over. The constitutional crisis. I mean, they just scream crazy and melt. It's actually quite good. And the ones that do the loudest, the ones are the worst. And it's about to unravel right before our eyes. Nothing that President Trump is doing is good at all. And you see the ratings. He's on fire. And the American people do believe in him. And he's doing an awesome job. And with these 5 weeks that he's been in office, like I said, it's hard to keep up with him. There's so much going on. I'm going to have to pay more money to do podcasts because I have to do one every day just to keep up with it. Crazy. And again, we're supposed to be talking about aliens, which no one gives a damn anymore about. They're here. Yeah, great. Unbelievable. I don't know. The world's nuts. So for the next piece, they say that President Trump and the new administration is not transparent, but from my account, it's at least every day there is a press conference, and every day there's something with President Trump getting questions answered in front of reporters. Have a listen. It's refreshing.
There are reports that you were considering merging the United States Postal Service with the Commerce Department. Can you elaborate on if this is something you're considering?
Well, we want to have a post office that works well and doesn't lose massive amounts of money. And we're thinking about doing that, and it'll be a form of a merger, but it'll remain the Postal Service, and I think it'll operate a lot better than it has been over the years. It's been just a tremendous loser for this country. Tremendous amounts of money are being lost, and we think we can do something that'll be very good and keep it a very similar way. But whether it's a merger or just using some of the very talented people that we have elsewhere, so it doesn't lose so much. It's losing a tremendous amount of money.
Mr. President, some members of Congress in red districts are facing pushback from voters in town halls. We know that Americans voted for you on the immigration and the economy, but these voters say they're angry and frustrated by these firings. They don't like the work of Elon Musk and these other actions. What do you say to them?
Who do you work for?
I work for ABC News, sir.
Who?
ABC News.
No wonder. Let me just tell you that I have today the highest poll numbers I've ever had. I have today the highest poll numbers of any Republican president ever. We haven't even checked the Democrats, but that's what I was just told. And they like the job that we're doing. They like the job that Elon's doing. He's doing something that a lot of people wouldn't have the courage to do. We want to streamline our country. We want to streamline, because you know why? Because we want our country to survive and thrive. And we're finding billions and billions of dollars of waste, fraud, and abuse. Billions, and I mean numbers like you wouldn't believe. And we haven't even started yet. So it's actually just the opposite. We've polled it, and people are thrilled. They can't even believe it's happening. And it won't affect many people. It'll only affect the people that get caught stealing. The waste, fraud, and abuse is at a level like nobody's ever seen. It's been going on for years. And all you have to do is look at the Social Security rolls, look at some of the things, look at where the money is going. The Attorney General's looking into something, environmental protection, $20 billion. And it's out and out fraud. So I think the people are very happy. Yes, please.
Mr. President, I want to ask you about this week, the Secretary spent 4 hours with the European Union trade representative. The European Union has signaled that they would lower tariffs and do a trade deal with the United States.
Yeah, the European Union wants to come back. They've treated us very badly, and the European Union wants to lower their tariffs because of the fact we were paying a fortune of tariffs. We couldn't sell a car there. We couldn't sell our farm products there. They wouldn't take anything. Now, all of a sudden, they're being very nice, and that's going to happen with a lot of others, too. The European Union is wanting to lower its barriers at very low levels. They want to now bring their car number, which was extremely high, down to 2.5%, which is the same thing that we charge. That's reciprocal. See, that's what is happening, reciprocal. And I think it's a big start in the right direction with the European Union.
You called President Zelensky of Ukraine a dictator. Do you think that President Putin of Russia is also a dictator?
I think that President Putin and President Zelensky are going to have to get together, because you know what? We want to stop killing millions of people. You have young soldiers being killed. If you saw the pictures that I saw of the battlefield from satellite, you've never seen any pictures like that. Soldiers are being killed by the thousands a week, thousands of soldiers a week. As we speak, they're being killed. That's why I want to see a ceasefire, and I want to get the deal done. I think we have a chance to get the deal done. I had to make sure that Russia wanted to do it. It's a war that would have never happened if I was president, but it did happen. So I got stuck with it, and I want to stop people from being killed. You know, it doesn't affect the United States very much. It's on the other side of the ocean. It does affect Europe, and we've put in 3 times more money. We're in for $300 billion. They're in for $100 billion. And, you know, Europe is also doing it in the form of a loan. Biden just gave them money. There was no loan. There was no security. There was no anything. So we're going to either sign a deal, or there's going to be a lot of problems with them. So we're going to sign a deal to get security, because we have to do that. We're spending our treasure. They're spending their blood. They are. And they're very brave in every way you can imagine. But we are spending our treasure on a country that's very, very far away. And it's okay. But we have to be treated the same as Europe is being treated. Europe gets their money back. Europe is basically giving nothing, because they get it back in the form of a loan, and it's a guaranteed loan. We don't get our money back, and we're losing. I mean, we don't want to do that anymore. So we're signing an agreement, hopefully in the next fairly short period of time, that will assure us that we'll get $400 or $500 billion back. We're in there for $300 billion. Now, one other thing. Europe is at 100. We're at 300. We think it has to equalize. In other words, they have to come up with more money, because it has a big effect in Europe. It doesn't have much of an effect on us, because we have a big, beautiful ocean in between. But it does affect. And Biden should have never gotten us into this mess We had an incompetent president who got us into a mess, but we're going to get you out of it. The same thing in the Middle East. We're going to have some good news in the Middle East. What happened yesterday, the sight of those babies was not acceptable to anybody. Nobody's seen anything like it.
Mr. President, are you going to Moscow? There's a report out of France that you're going to Moscow on May 9th.
No, I'm not.
To join President Putin.
I'm not.
And then if I could, sir, just ask you about Kash Patel, who's going to be sworn in as soon as your FBI director. Talk to us about your reaction to him getting sworn in and the fact that many agents across the country are concerned that they will be fired en masse for simply just doing their jobs.
No, I think the agents are very happy about Kash. In fact, the agents led the charge for Kash. One of the reasons I loved Kash and wanted to put him in is because of the respect the agents had for him. I think he'll go down as the best ever at that position. And it turned out he was very easy to get approved. You know, I was not sure. He's a tough guy, strong guy. He has his opinions, and I wasn't sure. He turned out to be he went very smoothly. I don't know if he's in the room now. He's going to be in the room very shortly. Where is he? Oh, good. I'm saying the right thing. I can't speak too badly about him. I better be careful. I will say this about Kash, and Howard understands this. One of the reasons that I wanted him is because the agents love this guy, and they respect this guy, and this is what they wanted. And even somebody like Trey Gowdy, who's a very good guy, but known as somewhat of a moderate person, he came out with a statement that was so incredible. He said, Kash is an incredible person. People don't realize it. When he said that, there was no doubt left. It was really a big statement made by somebody that's respected and on the moderate side. And I will tell you, I think Kash is going to go down as maybe the best ever when it's all said and done. So I'm glad he's willing to do it. Thank you, Kash.
Tim Cook a little bit more. You talked about. Could you speak a little bit more about your meeting with Tim Cook? You said that he was going to invest hundreds of billions of dollars. There's specific projects that he spoke to you about. What were those?
All over the country. He's going to start building, and he doesn't want to pay tariffs. And he's going to start building, but very big numbers. You have to speak to him. I assume they're going to announce it at some point, but very big numbers. He was here yesterday. I met with him at length, and Apple is coming here with tremendous dollars. They're going to be spending a lot of money in the United States, more than they've ever spent by a factor of probably 10.
Did you reporting that you were signing a memo later to counter digital service taxes?
Well, will you speak? I mean, what are you doing, reading it?
Yeah,
Can't you just say it without having to read it?
My question?
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Bloomberg, we're reporting that you're expected to sign tariffs or a memo later on tariffs on digital taxes. Is there any idea how high you might go with?
We are going to be
tariffs?
doing that. Digital, what they're doing to us in other countries is terrible with digital. So we'll be announcing that. Are we signing it maybe today?
Today.
And we'll talk about that in a little while. You'll be here.
Are you going to put the secretary in charge of the Postal Service?
He's going to look at it. He's got a great business instinct, which is what we need. And he'll be looking at it, and we think we can turn it around. But it is the Postal Service. I mean, we're leaving the Postal Service, but we're losing so much money with the Postal Service, and we don't want to lose that kind of money. So the secretary and some others that have talent, that kind of talent, will be looking at it.
Are you to a minerals agreement with Ukraine, Mr.
But they want it, and it keeps us in that country, and they're very happy about it. But we get our money back. This should have been signed long before we went in. This should have been signed by Biden, but Biden didn't know too much about what he was doing. The war should have never happened, number one. When it did happen, it could have been settled the first week or 2 weeks. After that, it got bad. It got really bad. But it should have never happened, and it should have been settled, and it could have been settled very easily at the beginning. Now it's tougher, but we'll get it settled.
Germany has elections on Sunday. What are your thoughts? What do you expect to happen in the elections on Sunday?
Who has elections?
Germany.
Oh, Germany. I wish them luck. We got our own problems. Bye, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Press.
Never has Biden ever had a press conference like that. Ever. Thank you for going down the rabbit hole with me. And I want to say happy birthday, Gigi. We love you. And you guys take care. We will see you soon. And keep looking for that elusive truth. Bye-bye.